According to CBS News, authorities say a rope that was tied in a noose was found hanging outside a middle school in Orlando, Florida. News outlets report several students and staff members at Gotham Middle School saw the noose Wednesday morning before it was taken down. Orange County Public Schools officials say police are investigating and whoever is found responsible will be prosecuted. School officials say counselors were available to talk to any students and extra security was on hand. An Orange County Sheriff's Office spokeswoman said they're reviewing the incident but said it didn't appear to be a crime.
The British Parliament has passed a bill to start talks about leaving the European Union. It was approved March 13th, despite a delay due to a back and forth between the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The BBC reports the measure is now expected to receive royal assent and be signed by Queen Elizabeth II. The bill will allow Prime Minister Theresa May to trigger Article 50 and begin Brexit discussions. Article 50 was created as part of the Treaty of Lisbon, and it allows a plan for any country that wishes to leave the European Union. Prime Minister May could begin the process as soon as possible, but CNN reports it's expected to be postponed to avoid a conflict with Dutch elections on March 15th. Meanwhile, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon discussed asking Scottish Parliament to grant her an independence referendum that could end the country's 310-year-old link with Great Britain. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul. China is planning to build a deep-sea research station able to reach a depth of 1,000 meters. The proposed station was announced by Yan Kai, the director of the State Key Laboratory for Manned Deep-Sea Equipment. He says the station will be able to hold dozens of people and stay submerged for over 2 weeks. The purpose of such a station would be to conduct scientific research. A deep-sea station is part of China's current 5-year plan for 2016 through 2020. Yan admitted there are a number of challenges to overcome before the station can become a reality. He added the station would have to be powered by fuel cells, nuclear power, or some other form of underwater energy. It would also have to be built from special lightweight materials in order to withstand the water pressure at 1,000 meters, or over 3,000 feet. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul.
A retired U.S. Navy admiral was among 9 people arrested Tuesday, March 14th. The latest to be charged in what's become known as the Fat Leonard scandal. According to the indictment unsealed Tuesday, retired Rear Admiral Bruce Lovelace accepted prostitutes, lavish meals, and fancy trips from Singapore-based defense contractor Leonard Francis in exchange for helping his company, Glenn Defense Marine Asia. Francis has pleaded guilty to defrauding the Navy of millions of dollars. The classified and internal information he received from Navy officials allowed him to overcharge the U.S. government by at least $20 million. In addition to Lovelace, who had served as the Navy's Director of Intelligence Operations, the others arrested Tuesday include 4 retired Navy captains, a Marine colonel, and an enlisted sailor. With Tuesday's arrest, a total of 25 individuals have been charged in connection with the Fat Leonard case. For Newsbeat Social from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
According to the Associated Press, North Dakota officials appeared assured to go after the U.S. government in order to regain more than $38 million in state expenses related to the months of protests against the Dakota Access Pipeline. One taxpayer watchdog group questions why the state isn't jumping at the offer from Dallas-based Energy Transfer Partners, a company worth billions of dollars. Joy Braun, a protest leader, said that pipeline opponents have long accused the state of being too cozy with ETP. She said, for Energy Transfer to offer a donation, basically that's paying off the state for using state resources as personal security.
Angelina Jolie made a strong defense of the United Nations, saying the world body is imperfect but needs reform and support. The American actress and special envoy for the UN Refugee Agency also decried a rising tide of nationalism masquerading as populism. She also discussed the reemergence of policies encouraging fear and hatred of others during her Wednesday speech at the UN in Geneva. She notably did not mention U.S. President Donald Trump, amid concerns that his administration could cut crucial funding for the United Nations.
The British Parliament has passed a bill to start talks about leaving the European Union. It was approved March 13th, despite a delay due to a back and forth between the House of Commons and the House of Lords. The BBC reports the measure is now expected to receive royal assent and be signed by Queen Elizabeth II. The bill will allow Prime Minister Theresa May to trigger Article 50 and begin Brexit discussions. Article 50 was created as part of the Treaty of Lisbon, and it allows a plan for any country that wishes to leave the European Union. Prime Minister May could begin the process as soon as possible, but CNN reports it's expected to be postponed to avoid a conflict with Dutch elections on March 15th. Meanwhile, Scotland's First Minister Nicola Sturgeon discussed asking Scottish Parliament to grant her an independence referendum that could end the country's 310-year-old link with Great Britain. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul.
Dutch voters rejected the party of far-right populist leader Geert Wilders in the Netherlands national election. Prime Minister Mark Rutte's Party for Freedom and Democracy maintained control of Parliament on March 15th. In front of a cheering crowd of supporters, Rutte said, quote, "This night is a night for the Netherlands after Brexit, after American elections, where we said stop it to the wrong kind of populism." Rutte's party, known as the VVD, is projected to have picked up 33 seats in Parliament. Wilders' Freedom Party is projected to have won 20. All official results of seats will be published March 21st. Wilders made headlines for his comments on Islam. During the campaign, he called for Islamic schools to be closed and for a ban on Qurans and burqas. He also said in February many of the country's Moroccan population were, quote, scum. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
Chinese tourists have refused to disembark their cruise ship onto Korean soil in protest over South Korea's THAAD missile deployment. The ship carrying 3,400 Chinese tourists docked at Jeju Island on March 11th. 80 buses with tour guides who had no prior warning of the passengers' decision were left waiting at the dock. After 4 hours in port, the ship continued on to its final destination of Tianjin. Many in China are angry over the deployment of the United States THAAD missile defense system in South Korea. The passengers' decision to remain aboard was widely praised by Chinese web users. The Chinese government has issued a call for travel agencies to stop offering tours to Korea over the deployment. The company that operates the cruise has said they are canceling 26 trips to Jeju, totaling about 120,000 Chinese tourists. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul.
The United Nations has accused the Syrian Air Force of committing a war crime by bombing water facilities outside the capital Damascus in December 2016. In a new report published March 14th, the UN Commission of Inquiry on Syria said, quote, "The attack amounts to the war crime of attacking objects indispensable for the survival of civilian population. Damage to the water facilities impacted 5 million people." Government forces and rebels previously blamed each other for the bombing. However, UN investigators said they had clear evidence, including satellite imagery, which shows Air Force jets striking the water source during a bombing campaign against rebel forces. March 15th marked the 6th anniversary since the start of the Syrian conflict. According to the UN Refugee Agency, the civil war has left 470,000 dead and 13.5 million in need of humanitarian aid. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
Hundreds of prominent Twitter accounts were hacked to tweet swastikas and pro-Erdogan support messages. Some of the affected accounts included Amnesty International, Forbes, Duke University, and actress Sarah Shahi. Many of the accounts hacked use the popular Twitter tool Twitter Counter, which analyzes Twitter followers. The hackers used the service's permission to post a message in Turkish that included a swastika and a link to a YouTube video showing favor for Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The message included 2 hashtags of Nazi Almania and Nazi Hollanda, which translate to Nazi Germany and Nazi Holland. The hackers also changed profile pictures and header images on the hacked accounts. Turkey is planning to vote April 16th on a referendum that could grant stronger powers to President Erdogan. Meanwhile, this isn't the first time the Twitter Counter has been hacked. Last November, a hack of the platform led to spam messages being sent out by PlayStation, The New Yorker, and Viacom. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Matt Paul.
On Monday this week, a man reportedly broke into a mosque in Tucson, Arizona in the middle of the night and destroyed several Qurans. The Islamic Center of Tucson said the man broke into the mosque around 3:30 a.m. and added that no one was hurt in the incident. According to a spokesman for the mosque, surveillance video showed the man unsuccessfully attempting to enter administrative rooms before proceeding to the prayer hall. The vandalism comes amid increased fear in the U.S. about hate crimes against minority religious groups.
On Wednesday, doctors representing 11 top U.S. medical societies will speak out in Washington, D.C. about the health risks posed by climate change. After announcing the formation of a new organization, the Medical Society Consortium on Climate and Health, the group will reportedly meet with lawmakers on Capitol Hill to discuss their concerns. According to the group, they will present a new report titled Medical Alert: Climate Change is Harming Our Health, which includes scientific evidence and accounts from doctors who say climate change contributes to a wide range of health issues, including heart and lung diseases associated with air pollution and wildfires.
Millions of Americans are struggling with falling temperatures and icy conditions on roads and sidewalks across the Northeast. The wintry weather conditions followed a late-season storm that plastered the region with sleet and snow. According to the Associated Press, Tuesday's powerful nor'easter paralyzed much of the Washington to Boston corridor, but fell short of the predicted snowfall totals in New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. Winter storm Stella dumped 1 to 2 feet in many places, grounded more than 6,000 flights, and knocked out power to nearly 250,000 customers from Virginia northward. It followed a stretch of unusually mild winter weather.
The Defense Department sent a notice to its workforce Wednesday telling employees not to stream March Madness games on Pentagon computers, warning the department's network could be overwhelmed. March Madness is officially upon us, the joint service provider, which handles IT services for the Pentagon, wrote to workers in an unclassified email obtained by CBS News. Acknowledging the inevitability of workers turning into the tournament at work, the JSP said engineers will closely monitor bandwidth consumption and server availability to handle additional network strain as best they can. But the office reminded workers that we share a single network, and visiting non-mission essential websites degrades network performance for everybody. Please keep in mind, if you're streaming video to watch your favorite players shooting free throws, you're consuming network resources that could be served to support the warfighter.
Protests in Bangladesh turned violent March 15th, with demonstrators and police clashing in the streets. Police used tear gas and water cannon to disperse protesters marching to the Energy Ministry to object to a recent increase in gas prices. According to the Dhaka Tribune, police say things escalated when protesters started throwing bricks at them. The newspaper reports that both demonstrators and police officers were injured in the clash. This is one of several protests over the past month in opposition to the government's decision to raise gas prices. According to the Bangladesh Energy Regulatory Commission, gas prices will be increased by an average of about 23%. The hike takes effect over 2 phases. The first phase began at the start of the month. Political parties opposed to the price hike have called for protests to continue for the next month, culminating in a mass sit-in. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Neela Uni.
Reuters has reported that Russian spies are among those expected to be charged as suspects in at least one of a series of hacking attacks on Yahoo Inc., a source familiar with the matter said on Wednesday. The U.S. Justice Department is expected to announce the indictments later on Wednesday. The Washington Post, citing unnamed officials, earlier reported 2 Russian spies and 2 criminal hackers would be charged in a 2014 attack.
For the second time in a month, a Russian spy ship has been spotted near the U.S. coastline, this time off the coast of Georgia. A U.S. defense official said the Viktor Lenov, a Russian spy vessel outfitted with a variety of high-tech spy equipment and designed to intercept communication signals, was spotted some 20 miles south of the U.S. naval submarine base Kings Bay near the Florida border. The ship was docked in Cuba before heading toward the U.S., said the defense official, who didn't specify when the sighting occurred. Last month, the U.S. Navy spotted the same ship sailing 30 miles off the coast of Connecticut, the farthest north ever ventured by a Russian spy ship.
CBS News reports that a Russian spy ship has reappeared off the U.S. eastern seaboard, sailing just 20 miles south of the U.S. Navy submarine base at Kings Bay, Georgia, and heading north. CBS News correspondent David Martin reports the Viktor Leonov, known as an AGI, Auxiliary General Intelligence Trawler, has a port call scheduled in Jamaica for mid-April, and the assumption among U.S. officials is that it will make one more run up and down the East Coast before heading to Jamaica. Its voyages are the latest in an alarming string of incidents involving the Russian military. In February, a group of Russian jets buzzed a U.S. destroyer in the Black Sea, and the U.S. accused Russia of secretly deploying cruise missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead in violation of a major arms control treaty.
Tech workers pride themselves on long hours at their desks, but this rally against the president drew hundreds out into the sun. Nearly everyone at this rally says skilled immigrant labour is what makes Silicon Valley work, and that the Trump administration's travel ban and other immigration policies hurts the industry. Ask any tech CEO here.
I certainly care about human rights. I care about people's dignity. I also, of course, have business interests. I have many employees that come from other countries. I need people from other countries. To make the technology we make, we need the brightest and the best all over the world.
But this protest, called Tech Stands Up, revealed that thousands of other workers in this industry also live in fear.
As workers at these tech companies, we cannot work or live or breathe in peace because we don't know if we're going to be picked up on our lunch break or if we're going to be picked up on our way to work, on our way home. So that's why we're calling on these high technology campuses to help us to make their work sites sanctuaries.
The industry is usually pretty quiet. It's generally more about making the platform than sending a message. But today, the self-image of the industry as progressive and diverse meant that people were out in force against the president. Kate King, Al Jazeera.
The U.S. Navy has signed over 2 decommissioned frigates to Taiwan. During a ceremony in Charleston, South Carolina on March 9th, the U.S. Navy signed over 2 decommissioned Oliver Hazard Perry-class frigates, the USS Gary and the USS Taylor. The East Asian nation had initially requested 4 decommissioned Perry-class frigates, which was approved by the Obama administration in late 2014. However, Taiwan ended up only purchasing 2 vessels for an estimated cost of $177 million. Taiwanese officials confirmed that the ships had been retrofitted to extend their service lives by roughly 30 years, making them a cost-effective solution for the island nation. The Taylor and the Gary were in service with the U.S. Navy between 1984 and 2015. They are scheduled to enter service with Taiwan's Republic of China Navy by the end of May. For Newsbeat Social from Washington, D.C., I'm Caitlin Mangum.
The Texas State Senate gave preliminary approval to a bill some say discriminates against transgender people. The Senate voted on the Republican-backed bill known as the Bathroom Bill Tuesday, March 14th. The proposed law would require people to use restrooms that correspond to the gender on their birth certificate rather than the gender they identify with. Supporters of the bill say birth certificates can be changed in Texas, but opponents say the process is difficult and routinely denied. The bill's sponsor, Republican Senator Lois Kolkhorst, said it's a common-sense way to maintain privacy and safety. According to Reuters, Democrats called it unnecessary, discriminatory, and economically destructive. Time reported the bill would affect restrooms in public schools, universities, and government buildings, but not private businesses. If the bill earns final approval, it will go to the House of Representatives. For Newsbeat Social, I'm Kimberly Caldwell.
With every pile of rock and dust moved by this bulldozer, Israel cements its position in the occupied West Bank. This under-construction road divides the Palestinian village of Nebi Ilyas in half. For the people who live here, it's a nightmare. They say it's almost destroyed the local farming community.
I have lost all my land. I have nothing left. And it's not just me. Everyone here has lost something.
Under the 1993 Oslo Accords, the West Bank is divided into 3 sections, areas A, B and C. A is under full Palestinian control and usually includes the towns and cities. B is jointly controlled by Israel and the Palestinian Authority and is often a village. C is Israeli controlled. However, it's Israel that holds the real power. It can and does shut down roads whenever and wherever it pleases. It often uses gates like these designed and placed strategically just for that purpose. This is Khalil Tafakji, who's a map specialist. He has criticized Israel for policies he says makes a Palestinian state almost impossible.
We have two states in one, a state for Israeli settlers geographically connected, and a state for Palestinian enclaves connected by bridges and tunnels. A Palestinian state in the West Bank is impossible because of the road network and infrastructure.
The United Nations ESCWA report says Palestinians living here in the occupied West Bank and Gaza are, in effect, subject to a separate law. The wording of the report says that Palestinians are subject in the West Bank to Israeli military law, and that settlers in the same area are subject to Israeli civilian laws. That is in itself a violation of the 4th Geneva Convention. The report also goes on to say that Palestinians are weakened because of the settlements within the West Bank and because of the siege of Gaza. And finally, the report concludes that Israel is operating an apartheid state. The Israelis are likely to strongly dispute the report, saying it's yet another example of United Nations prejudice towards the state of Israel. Imran Khan, Al Jazeera, Kalkilia in the occupied West Bank.
We had a minute or two and then it was over for us, said 56-year-old Nancy Schwarzenbach, who was forced to flee along with her family as a deadly wildfire raced towards her Lipscomb, Texas home. The fire burned through nearly all 1,000 acres of the Schwarzenbach ranch, killing some 40 cattle. The fire, moving up to 70 miles per hour, was one of several across more than 2 million acres, 810,000 hectares, that hit the Texas Panhandle, Oklahoma, and Kansas last week, killing thousands of livestock and causing millions of dollars of damage.
The White House has ordered the Secretary of State to cut U.S. contributions to the UN by more than 50%, signaling an unprecedented retreat by President Donald Trump's administration from international operations that keep the peace, provide vaccines for children, monitor rogue nuclear weapons programs, and promote peace talks from Syria to Yemen. For example, the U.S. contribution to the UN Refugee Agency's budget would be cut by $1.5 billion, and another $1 billion would be cut from the UN peacekeeping budget.
Allure.com has reported that the European Union's highest court ruled this week that employers in Europe can legally ban hijabs at the office. On Tuesday, a court in Luxembourg ruled it was legal to bar women from wearing hijabs, as long as the company has a policy that bans all religious garb. The Guardian reports that while technically the ruling applies to symbols across religions and political bents, it comes in the midst of a European election season during which feelings toward Islamism have been under the microscope and conservative politicians have been gaining popularity.
A judge refused to head off the imminent flow of oil in the disputed Dakota Access Pipeline. His decision likely cleared the way for operations to begin next week. The judge denied a request by the Standing Rock and Cheyenne River Sioux tribes to stop oil from flowing while the tribes appealed his decision last week, which allowed pipeline construction to finish. Pipeline developer Energy Transfer Partners is finishing up pipeline work beneath Lake Oha. The $3.8 billion pipeline will move North Dakota oil to a distribution point in Illinois. The Native American tribes maintain an oil pipeline under a lake they consider sacred, violates their religious rights.